Welcome back to Unlock the SWOK, where we go to all sorts of neat places, meet great people, and have awesome adventures. What's a SWOK, you ask? Southwest Oklahoma. So today, we're going to be with Stafford Air Space Museum. So let's do this thing to the moon and beyond. Hi guys, welcome back to Unlock the SWOK. Today with Mr. Jeremy.
Hi Elijah, how are you today?
How are you today?
I'm doing well. So you ready to explore the Stafford?
I'm so excited. I love space. I even got the books and all of this stuff. And my shirt's about space.
Hey, that is awesome. A great shirt.
Where is the Stafford Air and Space Museum?
The Stafford Air and Space Museum is about up a little bit more, and to your right, a little bit further. It's about right there is where the Stafford Museum is.
So what is your job?
My job is I am the curator of the Stafford Museum. I am responsible for making sure that the collection, which is what we call all of the things that we have in the museum, are taken care of and are accounted for, and they're safe. That could be something as small as a lapel pin from a space program and as big as an F-16.
Whoa, that's big. I can't wait to explore with this. What is a collection? You said a collection. What is a collection?
The collection is, in museum speak, it is what everything that a museum holds that is actually the important part of why it's there. It's not the gift shop. It's not, computers that are hanging out in the Ed Center. It's the stuff that makes a museum a museum. So whether it's something as a replica, or if it's an actual aircraft, all of these things are part of the collection of a museum.
I love space, I love air, I love planes, I love everything related to flying.
Fantastic.
Can you tell me about General Stafford?
Well, General Stafford is originally from Weatherford, Oklahoma. He's really kind of unique because his mother actually came to Oklahoma in a covered wagon in the 1890s. 90s, yeah. Oop, there we go. Yeah, the 1890s. And she lived to see her son travel to the moon on a color television.
Wow.
Stafford was actually one of the oldest of the astronauts. I believe he was 36 when he traveled to the moon. So not very much younger than me.
I can't wait to visit here.
Well, we can't wait to have you out. Well, this one is our replica of the Wright Flyer.
The Wright Flyer?
Yeah, this is a replica of the Wright Flyer. It's been here for a few years now, and it is a replica that actually came to us through Australia, and they built it for us, and now we have a full-scale replica of the Wright Flyer, along with
all the way from Australia?
Yep, all the way from Australia. Yep. And is that cool? Now, one of our favorite exhibit pieces here, and again, what I told you is all of them are various sizes. You can have stuff that's as big as a plane or something that's really, really small. One of our most precious is these two little bitty pieces of fabric. You see them there?
Why
this fabric
are they so special if they're just
and
two little
this piece of wood, because this came from the actual wing of the Wright Flyer, and this is a shard of the actual propeller. What makes them so special is that in July of 1969, Neil Armstrong took those shards with him to the moon, and they were in the lunar lander at Tranquility Base when it landed on the moon. So 65 years, 6 months, and 2 days from our first flight at Kitty Hawk, those pieces went all the way to the moon with mankind's first journey to the moon.
What?
Yeah, it is what is considered the holy grail of space artifacts. There's only a handful of these in existence, and Armstrong had reached out to the family to be able to take them with him. And when Neil passed away in 2012, his sons gifted the museum those 2 shards. Pretty cool, huh?
I can't wait to dive in to this amazing space and air center. I can't wait.
So what is your favorite part about space, Elijah?
My favorite part about space is the unknown things.
The unknown things, huh?
Like Mars and what is on it and stuff like that.
Really? Now, did you know the Americans went to the moon, but did you know that the Russians tried to go there too? It's called the space race. Stafford.
Stafford. Did he meet their dog that they sent to space?
No, Laika didn't make it back, unfortunately. That was a one-way trip for Laika. But it was a proof, because the Soviets were able to put a living creature in space. It was able to prove that we could, in fact, exist in space. At the time, we didn't know if we would be able to seal up a ship and be able to protect the astronauts inside it, and for them to be able to breathe and to live while they're in space. That was actually the very first challenge of spaceflight, was can we go up there and survive? And because of Laika, we were able to do so. Now, like I said, here we actually have the F1, which this is one of the main rockets on the bottom of the Saturn V. 14 feet from the bottom to the top of this bell. And it is huge, taking up an amazing amount of space on the floor.
I'm speechless.
But here at the Stafford, we're the only place in the world where you can see the Soviet moon rocket as well, right next to the F1. Though they never were able to launch a mission to the moon, they still built multiple rockets, and this is one of the engines that would have powered their moon rocket to the moon. Pretty cool, huh?
I'm speechless.
You're speechless?
I love space.
Now, you remember how big that F1 is, right? You see this?
Yeah.
This is where the F1 attached to the Saturn V. This whole piece moved. This whole piece is a hinge, and it could do this. All 4 of the outside rockets could move and adjust. And there was a gyroscope all the way up at the top of the Saturn V, and that's how they steered the Saturn V. Each of these pieces moved, and they're this big.
That big?
That big, and all 4 of them moved. The only one that didn't move was the one in the center.
Why did the one in the center not move?
The one in the center didn't need to move because all its job was to push the Saturn V straight up. The outside ones adjusted their thrust to make sure that it stayed going upright, because you didn't want the Saturn V to tilt or it would crash. So it had one in the middle that burned constantly, pointing down, and all 4 of the outside ones could adjust and move so that as it went up, it would stay vertical and go in the direction it was supposed to. Most people don't really understand just how big the capsule was that went to the moon. And now you can see how big that capsule was. This is our replica of the command service module from the Apollo program. Now, everything that you saw in the space program, all the videos of them going to the moon, were inside this section, which was the command module. This is the service module, which carried all the life support systems and so forth for the long journey to the moon. The only thing this really did, besides make sure that they had a home to live in while they were in space, was this allowed them to crash back to Earth, parachute into the ocean, and return. This was the part that they left in space when they came back to Earth. Now, of course, this is a replica, but it is a full-scale replica to show you just how big it is. But we do have one piece, one actual spaceship that is here in our building. And that Really? And that is the Gemini 6 space capsule. Now, this is what General Stafford flew on his very first Gemini mission. It's set right there. This is actually on loan to us from the United States Air Force, from the Smithsonian. So this gives you an idea of just how small and tight that space was. And for the taller astronauts, they actually were crammed in to the point that the top of it literally was pushed against their head when the door shut. So it was a very tight space to fit in for a very, very long period of time at some point. To give you an idea how powerful and how hot it was when they returned, this is the side that faced the atmosphere when it was returning. Each of these holes are places where they drilled to test the heat shield all the way around the bottom, but this was the heat shield, and this was the focal point for when it was coming into space, or coming back into the atmosphere.
How did you get all this stuff?
Some of it is on loan. The Department of the Air Force through the National Museum of the Air Force, and some stuff comes through the Smithsonian. This was actually at the Oklahoma History Center for a long time, and as we were getting ready for the celebrations and so forth, and as the museum expanded, General Stafford worked with the Oklahoma History Center to get it out here. So now we have this one, which is probably one of my favorite ones, but it's not by far the largest artifact we have. You want to see the largest artifact we have? The largest artifact we have is this 10-story Titan II missile.
10 stories?
10 stories. And it goes all the way down here. Now, remember what I told you, Elijah, about how the thrusters would adjust on the Saturn V? Well, this was originally a nuclear weapon. This was a ballistic missile that was designed to carry a nuclear bomb, but we modified it to carry astronauts to space because we were in a hurry. We had to race the Soviets into space. So we used what we had on hand, which is a nuclear missile. What's that?
Why did we have to race the Soviets?
The Soviets were the first ones to space. And back then, it was a really big fear that we did not want to get behind them technologically. And in the 1950s and 60s, the big technological measurement of everything that's going on was space travel. And in October 1958, you had Sputnik, which was boop, boop, boop. It was just a floating ball in space that the Soviets launched, and all it did was make a beep, beep, beep as it orbited the Earth. Now, that was a major win for the Russians because they got there first. They put something in orbit first. For the Americans at the time, it was really scary because that meant we were behind the Russians and we had to catch up. It wasn't as easy as people think it was. There were a lot of stumbling blocks and a lot of failures in the early years of the American space program, but it took some of our greatest minds to get us to where we were able to launch men into orbit. We were able to prove that you could rendezvous with other craft in orbit. And most importantly, that we could go to the moon, we could land there and safely return. But remember what I told you about the Saturn V and how the rockets adjusted?
Uh-huh.
These did the same thing. So these huge thrusters would all adjust. There's two of them on this one. And as it was lifting off, and you can watch videos of the Titan IIs and the Gemini program launching, and you can see the thrusters moving as it goes up. It worked on the same principle. Pretty cool, huh? By the way, Elijah, have you ever seen a nuclear warhead? Well, now you can say you have. This is the Mark VI re-entry vehicle, and it held one of the largest nuclear weapons ever built by the Americans, and what was originally designed to go on the top of the Titan II missile. That was when we replaced this big guy for that guy, and we sent men into space.
Thomas P. Stafford, no. Neil and Buzz, Neil.
Oh yes, yeah. Thomas Stafford knew Neil and Buzz quite well, actually.
So incredible!
Now, before we wrap up, I have to show you one more really cool and one-of-a-kind piece that we have here. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take you onto the bridge of the space shuttle. This is what they call the fixed base simulator, and all 135 crews of the space shuttle program practice their missions right here.
No way!
Right here.
Oh.
Some of the greatest astronauts to have ever lived, some of the best shuttle pilots ever practiced right here. From John Young and Robert Crippen, all the way through McCool. And this is the back section of that same simulator. Once we finish our renovations, you'll be able to walk in, and as you step between the two panels, everything in here will light up. The screens will come on, and you'll be able to see what it really was like to be aboard the space shuttle.
Do you guys have any activities that I can do?
We have a flight simulator. We have a whole lab full of flight simulators that you can try. So you can actually practice and actually try your hand at flying yourself. Also, we have a couple of really neat opportunities. One of those opportunities is to experience the inside of a MiG-21. The MiG-21 is a Soviet fighter, and it's one of the most, it was the most produced fighter jet in the world. This one is one that General Stafford flew when he was in command of what became Area 51. Before we go, you have to promise that next year you come out to visit us, because in addition to this, we are adding a stealth fighter to go right here.
A stealth fighter?
Yup. So do you have any other questions for me, Elijah?
No, I think that's it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for having me on today, buddy.
Thank you so much, too. I can't wait to see you again. Bye.
Have a great one. Take care. Bye-bye.